Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode. I'm so excited to have you here and to have my guest here, Kimmy Seltzer. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please introduce yourself to everybody. Tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what got you into this.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Kat. And I was super excited about our conversation because when you were on my podcast, we were just chatting away. I'm like, oh yeah, we can continue this conversation on yours. So I'm Kimmy Seltzer, and I'm a authentic dating strategist, a confidence therapist, and an image expert. That's a mouthful to say that I definitely have a holistic approach in helping people look and feel their best so they attract what they want. And whether that's in love or business, it's really about how we feel about ourselves, right? And, I mean, you can read my bio, and obviously I feel like my professional experience has been very fruitful, and I'm so blessed to have a lot of experiences. But really, the reason why I do what I do has to do with my own story, like yourself, because we were talking about on mine how adversity are gifts, in disguise. Yeah. And it's not until you're through it and you look back and you're like, oh, that's why I went through it. And I kid you not, because I was, I'll get a little into my story now. I practiced as a therapist for many, many years. I'm from Chicago, and I really thought that was my life. I enjoyed it. I think I helped a lot of people. But it wasn't until I went through my own stuff. I'm like, did I really help people? But, we all have different phases in our life, and we grow as we grow older. We also grow with knowledge. And everything was going on as planned. I had like the traditional house and the picket fence and the kids and the dog and the husband. I still have the kids, by the way, but you see where the story's going. So, one day we all had the opportunity to pick up as a family and move across the country to La La Land. That's where I'm here, Los Angeles. And when we got here, we decided to do what all the other people here do. We get a divorce. I mean, joke, obviously, I like to blame LA, but the truth is we would have been here anyway. And that's when the record stopped. Like everything that I knew, everything that I thought I was, how my life should be, completely disappeared in an instant. Mm-hmm. And I really wasn't sure how I was going to pick up the pieces and start my new life again. And also I was removed from, my support system, everything that I knew around me that kind of insulated me. Also, I think that was part of the reason why things didn't happen until all the insulation was extracted. And then we were left with each other in this new environment. And it was a very dark period. And I remember, and you'll relate to this being a mom, I just I'd let myself go. I call it my dark period, my black period, because my clothes reflected it. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't like what I saw. And here's the kicker of it all. And I know, we both do a lot of inside work. Up until that moment, I really believed that you had to work from the inside out, that you had to do the inner work and you had to really like work on yourself in order to like get what you want. And so I did that. And here I am, a therapist on top of it all. Like I should know better, But if anyone had come to me in that moment, I would have said, you think you have issues. Let me go on the couch for a second, because I was in no way, shape, or form able to help anybody else, let alone myself. And so I did the work. I had therapy myself. I had a great support system back home, at least, and people were really trying to help, but nothing was working. And I really couldn't get out of my own way. And just as I was about to go back to bed and give up, I decided this is like a pivotal moment to just take a hard look in the mirror. I don't even remember like why that moment I just like really saw myself, but I was horrified. I looked in the mirror and I was like, I cannot believe I became this. I'm this frumpy mom. I'm still wearing my nursing bras. I wasn't nursing any longer. I'm wearing flip-flops, ginormous clothes. I'd lost weight. I hadn't even seen my body. And I'm like, who's going to love this? I can't even love this. So I did something really untraditional. I went shopping, like shopping therapy. And I'm like, well, because nothing was fitting me. And my whole wardrobe consisted of black, maybe a splash of beige, but you get the picture. It was not colorful. And so I go to the store and I think I'm up leveling myself, right? Because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a new career. I'm going to get a new man. I'm going to get new clothes. But no, what am I doing? I'm taking all the same black clothes into my arms in the store, so how like again, patterns in our lives, it was the pattern, and I didn't see it. And this personal shopper, she came up to me. I now refer her as my guardian angel. And she said, ma'am, I've been watching you and I really think you should try this on. And she holds up a red dress that I thought looked ridiculous. And I said, that's really sweet of you, but it's not my size. And it's really red. She said, honey, that is your size. That is your color. Try it on.
What?
It was like she hit me over the head with that red dress, right? And I call it my red dress moment. And when I came to, I'm like, she's right. I need to feel different. I need to see myself different, because all this analysis paralysis, and that's really what was going on, is just keeping me from moving forward. And so I slipped it on and I twirled around like Cinderella and looked in the mirror again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a princess. It was that like Cinderella moment. And it really felt like that. I just kept staring at myself. I'm like, wow, like this is me. This is who I should be, at least. And so I bought the dress, and I bought it as a costume, quite honestly, because I didn't really believe it. I'm like, I'm going to walk out into the world in this. So I have my red dress, and I went everywhere, Kat, in this dress. I went to the
That's fantastic.
I went to the coffee shops. I went on dates, or I went like all this stuff. And here's this like really kind of the aha moment that changed the course of like me, first of all, and also the paradigm in which I work. I noticed that men were noticing me, and I didn't like it. I was scared. I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually being seen. So really what I realized, that those black clothes were a black cloak to keep me invisible from men, because I didn't know how to talk to the aliens. I didn't know that I was good enough as a single mom, and it really felt that way. Like I was in this foreign land. So I actually had to be comfortable being seen. Like that was the first part of my journey, and that there was a symbiotic relationship between the outer and the inner when it comes to confidence, that it's not superficial. How we market ourselves and how we portray ourselves out to the world determines how we're treated. So it's not superficial. And that changed everything. And I noticed then as I started getting more confident in being seen, I started wearing better clothes. I started feeling sexy in my body. My confidence grew. I started expressing myself more, both outside and in, and voila, like kind of this like new business idea was born. And I was also obsessed with that show, What Not to Wear, I'll be honest. And so I was like, I want to do that, like, so I was like making over my life, and I'm like, I want to help people make over their lives too. And now I work from the outside in. It's very untraditional, but as I go through it and as we talk, you'll see how it makes sense. So I use this formula called the Charisma Quotient, which is the name of my podcast, which you are on. And it's the formula that I now teach. And so I start with people's style intelligence, meaning their body language, their energy, their wardrobe, it's like your essence, right?
Yeah.
And then I go inward and work on emotional intelligence. And that's the vulnerability, the authenticity, how we express ourselves, the boundary setting, all that. And then I work on social intelligence, and that's how we manage interpersonal communication, your social comfort. And yes, that includes flirting, which is a big part of my business, which, by the way, I teach in business as well. So anyway, that's my story, a long-winded story.
Oh my
but
gosh,
I think it relates to our combo,
Yes. No, it's so amazing. And it's so funny is like thinking back into the things that I went through as well. I had that black era, like everything in my closet literally was black or gray. That was it. Like that was my thing. And it wasn't until someone had bought me a coral shirt that I became like obsessed with this color. And so like my closet turned into like everything black and coral for the longest time. But it's so funny that you say that because we do hear a lot of people talk about doing the inner work and not, and working onto the outside. But I love that you do it backwards, because one of the things that I started doing with myself when I was trying to get out of my head and get out of things that I had been through and try to be more confident in me was I would take myself out to lunch, which was really weird, super awkward. Just going to tell you guys that. But it was so liberating. Like I would go into like a nice Mexican restaurant or, not like Subway, like I'd literally go into a restaurant and I would sit down by myself and I would enjoy my lunch and I would bring a book or something that I could write. And it was so uncomfortable at first, but I actually ended up enjoying it. And I enjoyed being by myself and being able to take myself out to lunch, or do something for me that no one else had to be a part of. And that really helped with my confidence in being seen, like you were talking about, to other people. Oh my gosh, there's so many. And now the analysis paralysis, boy, is that, okay, we have to touch on this one because I feel like that is such a huge piece of business, personal, whatever is going on. Like analysis paralysis is the thing. How do you help, kind of dive into that piece in your business with your clients?
Yeah. It's funny because it's kind of a buzzword these days. I'm doing the work. Like you hear this all the time. Like I'm not ready to date because I have to do the work, but like, what does that really mean? Are you sitting on your couch and just doing self-help books and just, and so I think what happens is that it can often be used as a crutch or an excuse because there's fear involved in taking action. And that's why I love fusing the therapy and the coaching together, because while I think the inside job is super important in making connections, what I think is often missing is the action step. And I'm like you, I'm very results oriented. Like I want to help people get off the couch and not just sit there. And so there's a balancing act with it. Believe me, I think the inside job is super important. Obviously, I mean, this is what I do. But I think it takes a lot of action pieces in order to move people forward. And that's why I like starting from the outside, because that's tangible. Like changing your wardrobe and putting on color and pieces that actually flatter your figure, that will increase your confidence, that will send body signals out to the world that you're open, that you're available. And whether that's in business or love, like that's instant. And that will give you that internal kind of motivation and validation to then, start doing more of the work. Because so the analysis paralysis often comes from a habit where just people, it's like a comfy cocoon, like you just keep analyzing, or, a lot of high achievers, and I know you work with them too. If you are one listening to this, you'll relate. You're in your head a lot, right? Like, and that's, that's part of what makes you so brilliant at what you do. And it's also the biggest challenge when it comes to dating, relating, and networking, because you think too much about the outcome rather than what is. And so I think that's the biggest piece that I help people with, is really staying present and taking little action steps that are tangible, that they can see and feel, to make that progress towards, the bigger goal or outcome.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting too, because it kind of plays into, what we were kind of talking about earlier, what is confidence, and confidence does play a huge role in every aspect of your life. And we don't realize that. And it is interesting that if you really think about it, and I did a challenge not too long ago. Mel Robbins had one. It was a 5-day high five yourself challenge. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I'm going to try it out. But it was interesting because I don't think a lot of people think about staring at ourselves in the mirror. Like, we look at it in passing, right? Or like when we're brushing our teeth, or if you're putting your makeup on real quick, right? And then you're like, you're out, right? So, but nobody actually like stares in the mirror to really look at yourself for a minute, to like really acknowledge who you are. And that was part of the challenge, was you high-fived yourself every morning, but you really stood there and looked at yourself and thought of things that you were proud of yourself for accomplishing, to kind of build that self-confidence up. Because, like you were saying, we do look for that outside validation. And it was just really interesting I don't think I've ever actually stared at myself in the mirror. So it was interesting to really take the couple of extra minutes to just be with me, where you do have those moments where you're like, oh.
Yeah, it is. And, I think especially with high achievers, the confidence comes from achieving, right? The confidence comes from accomplishing, but it's kind of almost reverse engineering, and knowing that your worth and your value actually is not what you can do, but who you are. And that's a big switch, and by looking in the mirror and seeing all that you are, starting from the outside and the physical parts, and instead of focusing on what you hate, but what you love, that is a great place to start. And then that is also kind of that internal validation that gets built in. You were mentioning about confidence. That's why I call myself a confidence therapist now, because it's the crust of everything. And I define confidence actually different than a lot of people. I'm very simplistic. I just believe confidence is experience. End of story. That's it.
Okay.
And then I don't believe there's one person listening to this that's not confident. It's just that there's an area in your life where you haven't had positive exposure or experience around. So either there's been negative experience, so then it depletes your confidence, or you just never did it. It's just like work, for instance. When you first learned your trade and you had your first day at work, no one feels confident. Why? Because it's foreign. And how do you get more confident? You do it every single day until now you do it with your eyes closed, And so dating and being an entrepreneur, it's all the same thing. So if you're not used to flirting, or if you're dating later in life and you're back out there dating again, dating feels really weird. You're like, well, I'm not 20 anymore. Now, how am I supposed to go flirt? And so that was my journey. So I the red dress moment, that was practice. I had to practice being okay and comfortable in my red dress. And so that's why I love, again, really starting small with some things on the outside that all of you can do right now. So maybe it is putting color on, and just notice who's noticing you. How are people responding to you in that color? With business, color is huge. It's power. And when you're wearing something that's a little more subdued and hiding, you may not attract like a higher clientele. In fact, there's so much studies on, the outside stuff, and this is not a superficial thing, but it's something that integrates into your mind. Actually, there's a term called enclothed cognition, where your brain actually shifts when you wear certain things that make you perform differently. It's crazy how it works. So anyway, I just want to mention that, because that all has to do with our confidence. We have external confidence, we have inner confidence, and we have social confidence. And that all coordinates with the charisma quotient and the IQ. So just doing little things in each of those areas will increase your confidence.
Yeah. And that makes total sense too, because, if I'm thinking about from, when I was doing real estate, that was something that we talked about in rooms, was certain colors in rooms, and being very aware of those colors in the rooms because of the way it can make someone feel. And that's kind of when I was first introduced to it, but I didn't think about, the color that you're actually wearing. That makes total sense. Like, now I'm going to go try different colors. I'm going to go have fun with this one, which my husband will love, because he's always been one of those people that's like, try something new, try something outside of it. And so sometimes he'll bring me like some crazy stuff, and he's like, this would look great. And I'm like, oh honey, but he's like, I'm just telling you. And then I put on like, okay, well, it's not as bad, but I think that it also takes, a piece of being vulnerable with yourself as well. You have to be okay with not being okay.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Huge. And on that note, there's so many times where, people, they'll come to me and they'll say, find me a man or find me a woman, or, whatever it is, or an opportunity. And it's like, well, I'll help you find that. But what can you do to just like let go and have a little fun and be more present?
Yeah.
So again, let go of that outcome. And I find that the minute you are more like relaxed and you let go of all this monkey chatter in your head, or worried about what other people think or feel, and you're just being, that's when you're more attractive. You're more attractive to prospective clients. You're more attractive to, your prospective dates, because you're more relaxed in your body.
Yeah.
So that's why I love flirting so much. Flirting is just a magnetism that just draws people to you without getting worried about what the outcome is. And it's part of the charismatic type of energy that I teach. So yeah, there was I'll tell you a quick story around that. There was a woman, I'll never forget this. She, hired me. She's a high achiever, used to being very outcome oriented, and always had to have things like a certain way. Everything had to be perfect. Can you relate?
Yeah.
Right. Like, again, what you're so brilliant at, what makes you amazing in the business life, then it's hard to let go in your personal life. And it just wasn't working for her in her love life, because she was vetting these guys and pinpointing every little point she would see online. And if there was a little thing off, she would be like, swipe left and not give him a chance. But really what she was doing was picking apart herself, like, because there was this like inherent feeling of not being good enough and not being perfect enough, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it really kind of comes from within. But what was really funny is, after our journey working together, I mean, I literally had to just work with her on letting her hair down. Like it's not so serious, like things aren't so, just to be more playful, to have fun, to not worry about who this guy is, to just go be on the playground, play with a bunch of boys, and have some play dates. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, this is my boyfriend. Anyway, by the end of our coaching cycle, what's so funny, and this is like how the universe works. She goes on this date. Now she's like really relaxed, and she's having fun, and she's getting tons of dates. And she finds a guy she really likes, and they have their first date. And I guess they went to some place where they had shakes, and she ordered one of those green shakes, and the top wasn't secure. You see where this is going? And yeah. And she like squeezed the thing, and it poured all over her. And normally, like in the past, she would have been horrified and probably excused herself and went home. But because she got in the place she just started laughing. She's like, oh my God. And then he started laughing and they started like playing with, and then they had almost like a food fight with it. It was like hilarious.
No.
And it became this sexy, playful kind of fun interaction. And she's like, Kim, this was probably the best date I've ever had in my entire life. And it was such a big lesson for her of how, when you're able to be more vulnerable and letting go of the outcome and being more in your body and in your play, how much more magic happens and healthier relationships, form.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that happens, in business as well. And it's funny that you say that, because that's actually one of the things that attracted me to my husband, was because he just didn't care. Like, he was fully authentically just like him, but he's taught me so much to like learn to let go and learn to laugh it off. And like, so things just don't bother me. And I've even had my family be like, why are you so calm? Because I used to be like the, what? And I'm like, because it's not worth it. Like, it's really not. But I have to ask you, when you're dealing with your business clients as well, do you see that within them, with the type of clients that they attract because of that?
Yes. And I say yes. And it depends on, first of all, the business that people are in and what they're trying to attract. Because, the bottom line, I always tell people, like, first look at what you want, and then look at who you want to attract. And then third, who are you attracting? Because if there's incongruency with any of those three, that's why things might feel off. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to, for instance, attract a client and you're an entrepreneur that will pay you $10,000 a month, or whatever number or figure you have in your head, that's kind of a higher level for you, and you're not getting it, you're just getting a bunch of clients who are nickeling and diming you, they're a headache, that kind of thing. You have to look at what energy and image you're putting out. And, it could be maybe what you're wearing. It could be like the body confidence or the signals that you're sending, where you're not being seen as like somebody who's in that power. And it could also be like where you're surrounding yourself with, like abundance attracts abundance, victim people attract victim people, so but all this to say, you have control of your destiny. You have, but it has to do with your inner belief that you're worth it and that you're good enough for that $10,000. I'll throw myself under the bus. I have a funny story, because when I first was learning how to be an image consultant, I hired this woman because there was no schooling really. So I had to kind of make my own schooling. I did a program over in the UK that combined coaching and styling, which was really cool, but I needed hands-on experience. And so I hired this woman, and she was the top LA image consultant. And I just paid her a lot of money to just shadow her. And so I go to the stores and I saw what she was doing. And I was so nervous showing up at my first meeting with her, because she was dressed to the nines. And again, I'm coming out of my frumpy mom stage, and still going through my own makeover. And I remember buying this like rider jacket that I thought I was like up leveling myself. I mean, I was not up leveling myself. But again, I'm like learning, right? But I'm like, oh, I have a jacket on. I'm like all business-like. And so I show up, and she's dressed fantastic. And she looks at me up and down, and with folded arms, she says, and you think someone's going to pay you $10,000 to work with you? You look like a mom. Like,
thank you. I am one
mom. And I remember like welling in tears, and, but I have to say, as harsh as it was, and there probably could have been a better delivery, I needed to hear that. Like, she was right, because she was picking up on something that I wasn't seeing in myself. And it really did shake me. And so I had to have more red dress moments after that, understanding that the clothes that I purchase and the investment that I make in myself is a reflection of also who I'm attracting and what I deserve to put on my body. People don't realize how powerful that is. And it's all a metaphor to say, like, all the things that we do in our life, like as an entrepreneur, are you nickeling and diming the software that you're, using? Is that Is that working for you? Or is that like, people can tell that you're nickeling and diming, and again, it's not about the money. It's really about how you see yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And being confident in that, right? Like if you have a program that maybe doesn't cost you that much, but you know that you love it and you use it for that reason, not because you feel like you need to go cheaper, or you feel like you need to save money, that's totally different, than, we're not saying everybody has to have high end stuff, because I know, like for me, there's some like really nice, like especially shoes. Oh, I have a thing for shoes, that I really love, specific, really good name brand shoes, but I can go to the thrift store and find me the cutest little dress and I'll just be as happy as can be. And I don't care what it costs, or the fact that I save money, but it's a different view within my brain. I'm not doing it to save money. It's because I like what it is. Right. And that's the difference in that piece of it, is knowing if you're confident in it because you enjoy it, or if you're using it and trying to be confident behind it, but you know that there are real true reasons behind the reason why you're actually using something or dressing a certain way, like you were saying, or the people that you're attracting. Because I know that I have found within myself and with other clients that, especially with my kids, the things that I need to work on more reflect back to me through my clients or through my children, through my family. And it's interesting now that I take a different look at that. Instead of always trying to fix their problem, I kind of take a step back. And there have been several times I'm like, oh, yeah, I needed to work on that myself. But it's having that open mind, of being able to see that when you're dealing with other people.
Yeah, it's so true. And when you see it reflected back to you, it does wake you up. And we all need those teachers in our lives. It could be our kids. It could be the personal shopper. It could be any of those people. But all that to say, that's why I think, having a mentor, whether it's hiring you or, me, if you're single, whatever, it is just having that motivator, that outside perspective that can really push you. I actually do a lot of wing girl sessions, interestingly enough, where I go out into the field and I teach people how to interact, just whether it, obviously if you're single, how to flirt and how to interact with the opposite sex, if that's what you're into. And it's really eye-opening when you see things in time, how people show up, and we don't realize what's written on our face. We don't realize maybe the body signals that you're sending out to the world, or how you might be hiding in your clothes, or even the messaging that you say and the ways that your conversation goes. And I just want to touch upon like that vulnerability piece. Even when you're trying to connect, whether it's a networking event, like with other entrepreneurs, or you're trying to find love. And I was telling you this off air, by the way, if you're single, go to business networking events, because 80% of the people there usually are single. So it's like, you get a 2 for 1.
Tip.
Yeah, no, it's seriously like 2 for 1. And so, it doesn't matter. Like the same skills apply. And I think the biggest mistake people make is they'll go to a networking event and they'll be kind of stiff and just talk about the facts and what they do. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, people do business. People will ask you out on a date with people that they like. So the likability factor is way higher than all the knowledge you have swimming in your head, because people will get to know all your knowledge. But trust me, like there's plenty of time in there. They can go on LinkedIn and see. But if people like you, they're going to want to move on with you. So a big part of what I teach people is how to connect. And it starts with how just real you are and how vulnerable you are.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that I talk with a lot of my clients, and we're starting to see more people kind of talk about it as well, is realizing that what you have to sell is actually yourself, not necessarily your product. Your product is great, right? It can be a byproduct of working with you, but normally when people are choosing people that they want to work with, it is because of the connection, which gives them that trust with that particular person. And then they get introduced to all the other things. And I think even I did that for a long time, where, especially in the real estate world, I was so focused on like having the knowledge and I have to know this, and this is how to have the conversation. And then when I started taking a step back and doing it from a different angle and admitting that I didn't have the answer at the moment, but I'd be more than happy to figure it out or find an answer for them, more people got back to me. More people started trusting me. My clients were like, okay, right? Like they let go a little bit instead of staying on top of me and constantly asking questions or constantly trying to see if I knew what I was talking about or what was going on here. Or if you ever had anybody research their own stuff and come in and be like, oh, well, I found out. Right.
Yeah.
but it's a different feeling. It's also a different aura that you're putting out there as well. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I think that vulnerability is a word that gets rolled around a lot as well, where people are like, oh, if you tell your story and you cry online, that's you being vulnerable. No, it's not. You're putting your hurt out there and you're not healed. That's totally different than sharing your story to empower others so that they can grow from your experience and make a difference in their own life. That's two totally different things. And that is being vulnerable because you're sharing it for a higher purpose. You're not sharing it for yourself.
Yes. Amen to that. Like that is, yeah, it's like, but like, I know it's everything that I believe too. And I'm so with you on that. And, I just did a TEDx talk and I was actually talking, my title was How Marketing Yourself Attracts Love. And, cause again, it's kind of a little bit different, in the way that we think of attracting love, but it's all the stuff that we're talking about, how we put ourselves out there. And I said that actually is that a lot of times people think vulnerability is TMI, like too much information. And that's not exactly right. It's actually like what you said, sharing things for the purposes of what you're, trying to achieve with that person. But it's also being real and using feeling words in a story. So you could tell a story in a very factual way, but people aren't going to feel you.
Yeah.
But if you're sharing a story that has emotion attached to it of the why, then we understand, we can feel you. So again, this works in networking. It works on dates. Like it's so magical. Like you and I literally have spent the last, half hour to 40 minutes just like sharing stories and being real and talking about our experiences, because that's what makes us human, and if you are listening to this, like you probably relate to that more than me spewing off a bunch of statistics. I mean, statistics are interesting, but that's not what sticks. It's not what sticks sometimes.
Yeah, no, definitely. 100%. Well, as we wrap everything up, Kimmy, thank you so much for being a part of this. I've had a blast. Can you give us a quote or a piece of advice, something you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh yeah. I say this a lot and it's very simplistic yet kind of, I think holds true, especially with what we're talking about, is that people love people who love themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Just hands down, and so when you're thinking about doing business with other people, trying to get clients, trying to attract love, instead of focusing on everybody else or worrying about everyone else, just focus on you, because everyone else will be attracted to that, and so building yourself up with all the things that we were talking about today is part of what makes you so attractive to yourself. And then when you feel that, like even when you feel sexy, then other people will see you as sexy, so it's all about you, and that will change the results that you'll get.
Oh, 100%. I love that. Ooh, I may put that up on my wall. Well, Kimmy, how can people connect with you, follow you, reach out to you?
Yeah, well, and I also would love to offer a couple of free gifts if you don't mind, because it relates to what we're talking to. Like if you were listening to this, you're like, I need a little update on my style. I do virtual makeovers, but you can get started by just downloading my free style guide. You just go to kimmyseltzer.com/style. And whether you're a man or a woman, you can choose which style guide. And it'll go over like what body type you are, how do you measure yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then it shows you what clothes flatter your figure and what clothes to stay away from. I'm very scientific in the way I approach clothes. I'm not this like cookie cutter stylist, like, oh, just wear this, you'll look fabulous. Like that increases your confidence when you're wearing things that flatter your body. So you can check that out. And then if you are single and you are listening to this and you're not quite sure which area of your life, I actually have a dating diagnosis quiz. I think that might be kind of a fun thing for your listeners. And you can just go to kimmyseltzer.com/quiz and you'll find it right there. And that's the website. So if you want to get in touch with me, kimmyseltzer.com, KIMMYSELTZER. And all my socials basically are at Kimmy Seltzer. And of course, my podcast, Charisma Quotient.
Yes, definitely the podcast too. So, and we'll have everything in the show notes. But Kimmy, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. I have had a freaking blast, and I love that we got to touch on several different pieces. So, to everybody out there, I hope you guys got some amazing takeaways from today's conversations. Be sure to check out her quizzes, which will be in the show notes. I'm actually going to check out the style one myself. And to everybody out there, I hope that you guys really take a look inside, but also take a look at the outside as well. And don't forget, until next time, do something positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day.
Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.